Good afternoon, students. It's Mrs. Cinti here, and I would like to talk to you about the human body. Start our notes on this. So we are discussing the human body. This is the kind of our overall unit. We're in chapter 1 right now, and all I want you to write on this next slide is just the title. We'll do this in class, but if you could just write that body organization is the title of section 1.1. Okay, and then we will move on to the next section. Okay, so just this was a cool thing that I saw in your book. A medical illustrator, okay, is the person who is what you would call somebody who draws kind of the parts and the tissues and everything in the body. So they design the body, or they recreate what is actually going on, what the body looks like inside. That's so we can use it as scientists and doctors and whatever else may be needing pictures of inside the human body. What I thought was really cool is that some specialize in just hands, some specialize in just organs, some specialize in different things. What is really neat is that you need, they're artists, most of them need a college degree, and it kind of illustrates the idea that a picture is worth 1,000 words, if you think about it, right? Like inside here, right, looking at these bones right there, you really are seeing a lot more than could be described to you. So you don't really need the words to explain how the body is working and what it looks like by just looking at the picture. So I tried to integrate a lot of pictures into your notes today. So in general, let's think about what is your body doing when you walk from your home to the school or to your car. What's happening within your body that's helping it kind of work, that's showing that it's working well. I'd like to just point out a few that we may not always think of. It is, especially on a cold day, it is regulating temperature. So just in general, whenever you're just sitting there as you're taking these notes, right, it's regulating your internal temperature, making sure that you don't get too hot or you don't get too cold. It's breathing for you. It's helping you breathe, which means that it is filtering out the oxygen. So it's filtering the oxygen out of the breath that you take, and it's attaching it to the red blood cells, or the hemoglobin that's in your red blood cells, the iron atom. It's also grabbing all the CO2 and getting rid of the CO2 that's in your body, so you don't develop any problems. It's also digesting your food, right? It is building muscles. It's using energy. It's making energy from your food, but it's really working hard on energy to keep you awake. That's how you are able to write these notes. It's regulating your heartbeat. If you were exercising, or if you have just been sitting on the couch all vacation, then maybe it's working on keeping those muscles super strong or destroying them. So it's a good way to start in general to acknowledge that our body works so hard and so efficiently that we can't even tell what it's doing for us. We don't even notice that it's working extremely hard at all points during the day and night. So what is the organization of your body? In general, the way that we're going to list it is we're going to say that the organization starts with a system, and that system can be, good examples of the system would be the skeletal system, so just the bones, the skeletal system, and I'm having a hard time right now remembering how to spell it, skeletal, we'll say skeletal system. There's the digestive system. We'll list all of these later, but that's kind of what we're talking about. The muscle system, the epithelial system. So that's the system. Within that system, the system is made up of a whole bunch of organs. Okay, the organs are made out of specific tissues, and then those tissues are made out of cells. we could take this one more level and say that the cells are made out of molecules and atoms. But that's kind of, this is the system. These are the 4 steps to the system that make up, that really make a certain system very specific. Okay, so that's the organization of the system. Here's another example of the system in a monkey. This is the urinary system. So here's the organism, right? Within the organism, there is the urinary system, or this organ system. Within the system, there is this one organ. There's another organ. Within the organ, there are lots of different tissues, and what make up those tissues are these cells. Okay, so you learned before about cells, and you looked at just one type of cell, kind of your generic animal cell, the round one. I'll show you a picture of it in 1 second. But what's important and what we'll be learning is that there are different types of cells. There are quite a few. But there's the muscle cell, the nerve cell, an epithelial cell, and a connective cell. And we'll list those in a moment as well. So to remind us what a cell is, it's the basic unit of structure and function in living things. And if you're ever asked the question, how many cells do you have? You have about 100 trillion cells in the human body. I don't know what I just did. So we had said there were 100 trillion cells in the human body. And let's move right along. Okay, so the 3 main regions of the cell that I need you to know, and I know last year you learned a lot about the different organelles within here, the endoplasmic reticulum, the mitochondria, you know. The 3 main regions I need you to know is the nucleus. Okay, and we'll look at cells, your cheek cells actually, in a lab coming up. And just to remind you what what the nucleus does is it dictates the cell's functions. What is the cell supposed to do that day, right? Wake up, dictates the cell's function. And of course I'm being silly, right, in saying when you wake up, like the cells are constantly working. They don't kind of take a break until, you know, they're taken down, you know, if you will. But it's working constantly, and the instructions for what it's supposed to be doing while it's working, it comes from the nucleus. The next thing is the cell membrane that I want you to remember, the cell membrane. And that's just the outside of the cell. And the cell membrane, what I need you to know about that is it's mostly a really selective gate. There's a squirrel coming at me right here outside the door. A cell membrane is mostly a selective gate, meaning that you have a gate maybe to your lawn, right? To your lawn, and you aren't, like, anybody can just walk in, right? But if you put a key on it, all of a sudden only the people with the key can get into it, or the people who can jump over the gate can get into it. That's kind of the idea behind this, is that the cell regulates what comes in and out of it at all times, and the cell membrane is kind of that gatekeeper. Okay, so that's the cell gate. And then the last place is kind of this part, the jelly that all the organelles live in, and that, if you recall, is called the cytoplasm. And the cytoplasm is where the organelles, as I said, are suspended, in the jelly. It's like a jelly, right? It's a jelly-like material. And this is where much of the cell work is done. Okay, is done here. Great, so those are the 3 main regions that I need you to remember, and we'll be identifying them on your own personal cheek cells. Yay! So the next part is the different types of cells that there are. Okay. Um, I want to mention them. I want them in your notes, and then we'll come back to them again. I'll tell you which ones you actually do need to know. But there are lots of different types of cells. Okay, bone cells, reproductive cells, blood cells, tons of different types of white blood cells, and then you have the red blood cells, gland, nerve cells, blah blah blah. Okay. So to come to the next kind of category within that organization, we said cells. Cells make up tissues. I was just being funny with this tissue box, but tissues is a group of similar cells that perform the same function. So to protect the organ, to do any of those things, so they'll have a certain function to do. So here we go back. The 4 types of tissues are right here. These are the 4 types that I'd like you to know. So muscle cell can contract, or muscle tissue, all the cells working together allows a muscle to contract and shorten or shorten. An epithelial cell, what these do is they cover, and this is what they look like. I'm sure you've figured that out now. They cover all surfaces of body inside and out. Okay, a nervous tissue, what these guys do is they direct and control. Body functions. And then the connective tissue, its main job is to provide support. It's kind of like this great support. I did it the wrong way, sorry. It's kind of like this great matrixy kind of stuff that just keeps it all together. You know, it's like a web, I guess, that keeps everything together. Okay. So those are the 4 main types of tissues. Here's an example of how the tissues all work together. Here you have on the surface, on the inside of this heart, right? This is a heart right here. On the inside surface of the heart, you have epithelial tissue. Okay, so this is a diagram from your book, just to give due credit. So covers the inside surfaces of the heart and the blood vessels that lead into and out of the heart. So it really is in here, in these tubes, it's on the surface, on the outside, on the inside, all of those things. Then you have nervous tissue. You have connective tissue. Sorry. You have the connective tissue here, providing strength. That connective tissue right there, that just keeps it all together. You have the muscle tissue. Oh my gosh, sorry about that. You have the muscle tissue again, which contracts, and that's what squeezes the heart together, so the blood moves in and out. And then the nervous tissue is not shown in the diagram, but it's bringing messages from the brain to speed up, if you will, to slow down, depending on the circumstances. If you need more oxygen being carried to your muscles and all of those things. Okay, now getting to the organ. Okay, an organ is a structure made up of different kinds of tissues, and so that's what the heart was, right? Made up of the 4 types of tissues, and it performs a certain job. And so these are examples of different organs. There are lots of organs, but these are just some classic organs: the lungs, the liver, the kidneys, all of those things. And then in a system, each organ, okay, is part of an organ system. Okay, so this is a vocabulary word that you need. Organ system, which is a group of organs that work to carry out functions. Okay, and then these are all, I had listed just a few. We talked about the chimpanzee's urinary system, but there's respiratory, digestive, lymphatic, endocrine, circulatory, right, where all the veins and arteries, nervous system, muscular system, skeletal, reproductive, and urinary, integumentary, sorry. So we will be looking at a few. These are some nice examples that from your book again that tell you kind of what happens. A lot of them work together. So the bones, cartilage, ligaments, and tendons are part of the skeletal system. So it's not just the bones, it's the stuff held between the bones, the ligaments, the tendons. And what they do is they support, they protect organs, they allow movement, they store minerals, they produce blood cells, the bones inside. And we'll look at that producing blood cells, which is very cool. When we get to the skeletal system, we'll study each of these kind of or many of these, not all of them. Muscular system, you have different types of muscles, as it turns out, skeletal, smooth, and cardiac, which we'll look at. You saw the image of the cardiac muscle around the heart. Respiratory includes the nose, the pharynx, the larynx, the trachea, the lungs, and the bronchi, which are inside here, which we'll look at. Excretory system, your skin is involved in that, your lungs, your liver, because the lungs are helping get rid of the oxygen, your bladder, your kidneys, all of those things, the nervous system. So just really interesting stuff. As far as what you have to put in your notes, I would say just have a general idea about, be able to talk about maybe 3 systems and what would be involved in them. Okay, and you have other options in the book to know as well. Okay, we will look at some new notes later on. Have a good day.